Hey everyone, welcome back to Pencils and Lipstick. I am Kat Caldwell, your hostess, and this is episode 179 of the show. We just keep trucking forward. Today is an interview show, so this intro part is going to be short. But this is the week that we are talking about the Write With Us online writing retreat 2023. This is our fiction retreat geared towards fiction, but honestly, if you're writing memoir, you will benefit from it as well. We are very excited. I am putting this together with Marcy Renee, the same woman that I am putting together the in-person retreat. And we are so excited to launch this. It is happening May 16th and 17th. It is a 2-day intensive retreat. There are 7 workshops. I think there are 3 writing sprints sprinkled throughout. There is a meet and greet. There are 2 giveaways. So both days we are going to be giving away fun products that you can use to help your writing along. And we're really excited about it. It's been a lot of work to put it together, but we wanted to be able to put together a in-person retreat, which will be happening in September the 17th through the 23rd. And I will just launch that right after this retreat. And so you can click on the links in the show notes below, but you'll find out more about it in 2 weeks' time. This week and next week, we're going to tell you all about the online retreat because we wanted to also have a retreat for everyone. So it doesn't matter where you live, you can come and join us. So all the times are going to be in Eastern Standard Time. So that's New York City time. If you're outside of the States, it's from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday, May 16th and 17th. But everything is being recorded. Everything is going to be streamed to a private Facebook group. You will get access to the recordings for life if you purchase a ticket. You can also get access to the recordings in the Facebook group as well if you purchase a ticket. So we are very excited. You will have live workshops with the invited guest authors who are going to present to you brand new workshops that they have created for this that they haven't given to anyone else. So we are having Beth Barani and Louis Jordstad and Stacey Juba and Emma Desi and Marcy Renee and Tracy Gardner and myself each teach you something new, something that you can bring and implement into your writing right away. So be sure to click the link below. And until Friday, you can get $30 off. So you can get in for just $97. That is the coupon link below. If you happen to go to katcaldwell.com/online writing retreat, you can use the coupon code Write With Us, all in caps, until May 5th. And then it will be the price of $127. That all comes with 5 bonus ebooks, one from almost each of the 7 of us. And then the giveaways will be something completely different, actually. I'm very excited about the giveaways. They are all of monetary value. So there's not just like a thank you on the webpage or something like that. So we're very excited about it. The links are in the show notes below, but you can go to katcaldwell.com/online-writing-retreat and get more information about it, see our lovely faces, get the itinerary. You can also click on the code below to just go straight to the checkout and get your $30 off until May 5th, and get in for just $97. So I think it's a steal. I think it's 7 workshops for life. I think you're really going to enjoy it. You're going to meet other writers. I just highly recommend you come. I know all the work that went into getting everything together, and I know the authors. I've met all of them. I've interviewed most of them on my podcast. Yeah, most of them. I think everyone but Marcy's been on my podcast. So we're very excited about it. The Write With Us Online Writing Retreat 2023. Woohoo! It's finally here. It's finally coming. So the other thing that I wanted to tell you guys about is how much I am enjoying Plotter. I know that I'm not a plotter. I'm more like a puzzler, which is what Louis George came up with for the Launchpad book. I do kind of skip ahead sometimes on my stuff, but I decided that I was going to use Plotter, and I told you all that I was going to. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on how I'm doing it. So this is how I'm doing it. as a little bit of a puzzler, there are times that I'm washing dishes and I get an idea, and sometimes I have the time to write out the scene, but a lot of times I don't. And so what I'm doing is putting it into Plotter, and I'm naming the scene what I think it's going to be. So the revelatory scene for Tristan came to my head the other day, and I put in all of the details that I had at the moment, and I just left it there. It's sort of the dialogue that had come to my head, the scenery, and what I think should happen. And the reason that I'm doing that is because A, I don't want to lose the idea, but B, um, it might change slightly. Like the idea, what I want to be conveyed in that revelatory scene isn't going to change, but you never know where the setting might change, right? And so now that I am sort of done with putting together the Write With Us online writing retreat, getting all that back end stuff done, I'm going back to writing Bend in Love. And honestly, I haven't been able to really work on it for like 2 weeks, which feels like a long time. So what I did was decided that I was going to go back to the beginning and plot it out on the plot. So I have the little scenes that I haven't written out sort of in there. I have 3 ending scenes. I have the revelatory scene. I have a couple other scenes that I had pulled, just like the ideas and things out there and whatever I could get. I mean, Plotter, you can put like tons of words into this little card, right? Everything that you want. And so some of them have a lot of words and some of them just have like bullet points. So then I went back to the beginning and I really wrote down like the key ideas for like chapter to chapter. So I'm only on chapter 8, I believe, and I have 16 written. So I'm going to get that done, and get that into Plotter as I'm reading and sort of editing and, reminding myself what is happening. And that way, I think that I'm going to be able to see the full arc of what's happening, to make sure that what's in my head is actually on paper, and that the key scenes that I wanted to have happen, the key moments, are actually getting in there. And so I'm pretty pleased with it. It's very easy to use. I can use it across my computers. I can use it on my tablet or my phone as well. So I just wanted to give you guys an update. I am actually really happy with that software. I don't plot like many of you plotters out there, but I think that it's very key and helpful, honestly, in the way that my life is right now, in that I don't get to focus only on one book at a time. Or maybe that's just how I am. Like I don't focus on one book at a time. Like I did that for Stepping Across the Desert. I did that for Audience with a King. I was focused on just those 2 projects. But as I am coaching people and putting together retreats, and I'm really happy with it, I'm excited and I'm loving the work, I'm just not able to keep my brain really focused on the story as much as I would like. And so it's nice to be able to go and get those bullet points and see that arc and be able to make sure that what I have always thought the story should be is actually getting on paper. So again, I think you guys should check it out. I am an affiliate, but that's because I really like it. So I wouldn't keep telling you guys about it as an affiliate if I didn't like it. I am really excited to have Troy come in and do a workshop for us pretty soon. We are working it out, but Plotter is definitely worth fiddling around with and seeing if you can see yourself doing it. Even if you're a puzzler or a discovery writer like I am, sort of keeps everything together. Now, granted, like I still have, if you're watching on YouTube, all these notebooks in which I write stuff down. I mean, I can't get rid of paper. But it's nice to be able to take all these notes and put them into one digital thing and know that I'm not like losing my mind because I lost my journal. Because that happens actually. Because I don't keep the same journal. I mean, you should see my desk. I have 7 journals around here. It's just ridiculous. So I think you guys should check it out. The link is in the show notes below. If you want to find out more about Plotter, I had Troy on talking about Plotter a couple of episodes ago, and you can check that one out. And then I had him on talking about his own books. There are other softwares out there. I've tried all of them, but Plotter is the only one that I stuck with. So anyway, So I mentioned YouTube. We are on YouTube now. We have all the videos on YouTube. No, most of the videos on YouTube. So like seasons 1 and 2, I don't have videos anymore. Sorry guys. You probably don't want to see those videos anyway. But any recent videos are up on YouTube, and you can follow us there. You can see the interviews happening. You can see my lovely office as it keeps going. You know, I don't think I added anything new to it this week though. And I'm still not showing you that corner. So anyway, otherwise, you can listen to us on all the podcast apps. Please share the podcast with your writerly friends. We would really appreciate it if you get the news out there. This is our 4th year, and podcasting ever since COVID, like there are tons of podcasts out there, right? And some of them are great, and we think ours is great. So we would love for you to share out, your the link, that you're listening. Show us that you're listening. Tag us on Instagram. It's Pencils and Lipstick, all spelled out, or on Twitter, Pencils Lipstick. We would love to see what you're doing. What do you do to move your body, to get up out of this seat? I've been sitting in this seat all day long, but I did go to a solid core, which, by the way, wow, that place is crazy. So I think you should go take a walk. I'm not going to recommend solid core. It's insane. It's great, but it's insane. But show us, tag us wherever you're listening, share us with your friends, give us a review on your favorite podcast app. Be sure to subscribe both on YouTube and your podcast app, because it shows us that people are listening. And if you guys have any questions or have any guest suggestions, you can pitch them at Pencils and Lipstick, all spelled out, on Instagram, or Pencils Lipstick on Twitter. You can subscribe to my newsletters in the links below, whether you're a writer or a reader. You can find out even more about what I am doing in the writing world and in my book world. Yes, and I think we're going to keep it at that for today. So today I have with me Chris K. Jones, and I really enjoyed talking to Chris. In fact, after we hit the no longer recording video button, we just kept talking. So he's really fun to talk to. But Chris K. Jones is a recovering serial entrepreneur, which he's going to talk about, who quit at the peak of his career to honor the promise he made to himself at 19 that he would become a writer. Chris splits his time between Tarrytown, New York and Barbados, lucky him, where he finds time to swim with turtles and observe cloud animals. Although he doesn't have children, his inner 8-year-old keeps him on his toes. He is an extrovert who has decided to work in the world's loneliest profession, writing. Writing his first novel, Headcase, has been the best form of therapy he has ever had. So let's get on to the interview. Hello, everyone. Today I have with me Chris K. Jones. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Hi, Kat. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thanks for coming. There are so many things to talk about today with your book, Headcase. But before we get into it, would you just introduce a little bit about yourself to the listeners?
Sure. I am a recovering serial entrepreneur who always wanted to write, and it was kind of what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to be a poor starving artist, so I went out and had a life as building companies, and I was the chief financial officer of my company. So I was CFO by day and write at night. And then finally got to a point, sold my company, and I was able to focus on my writing. And I wrote my first book. It came out a year ago, so
Awesome.
in this month.
How does it feel to have the book, like, two different dreams, right? So you have your company, that's really cool to have built a company, and then to be able to quit that and write a book and have it out, like finish the book and have it out. Like, does it feel like a different kind of success?
Yeah, absolutely. Very different type of success, as well as just a very different experience.
Mm,
Being, I kind of joke that I'm an extrovert in the world's loneliest profession.
yes.
And I never realized that till we went into the pandemic. And my last day at the company I co-founded as chief financial officer, that was January 31st, 2020.
Oh man.
So we went right into, the pandemic. I kind of had a month to figure out what I was, how I was going to do with my writing and this and that. And then we went into the pandemic. And so then it was really easy because I had nothing to do but write, so Yeah, then I decided my attorney sent me a notice about Barbados. He's from Barbados, and I'd been there many times, and that they had this welcome stamp program. So in September 2020, I packed everything up and lived down in Barbados for close to 2 years.
Oh, that's nice. They let you in during the pandemic.
Yeah, so they wanted
Nice.
people to come down because tourism was over. There was no tourists. There was ever, so yeah, went down. I had a 1 year visa, which I still have. I renewed the visa,
Right.
and I was able to write my first book from the beach. It was and then
Nice.
yeah, it wasn't too hard. But I did realize, it was also motivating because I
Okay.
realized growing up with nothing and going out and working real hard and lots of sacrifice and I knew each day like, hey, this is the writer's dream.
Right.
So sit your ass down, get to work. So I had my process, get up, exercise, meditate, and then sit down and
Okay.
get to writing. And yeah, I got to take a break and go for a swim and then
Right.
come back. But it was really that was the motivating factor because I knew other people didn't have this opportunity that I did, and I had to take advantage of it. And it was, yes, it was very great and motivating. And I had a lot of research I had to do, but with Google and Google Maps, it was you could do there's no excuse. If you
Okay.
if you're a reader, if your reader is taken out by poor research, that's on you because there's no reason for poor research because
Right.
everything is right. I could use the searches that I did and found tons of articles was really amazing. So we're very lucky as writers that
Yes.
we don't have to sit in the library all day, that we just go out to Wikipedia, Google Maps for places where you're getting pictures and images and things like that. So, and also fashion I do integrate fashion into my book about what he's wearing. It's a very, there's pro athletes and he's a psychologist and I like fashion. So it was like finding the type of clothes that they would wear. And
Okay.
the women, I don't know what women wear, so I had to research it, and like label what the dresses were and make sure it was the right one, and then check with my friends. I'm like, is this a good one? And is this like so? There's no. I think we're as writers, we're really in a great uh, place to be able to get all our research done so quickly. Well, you can write anywhere.
Yeah,
You can
that's
be in
true.
your home, you can be on the train, you can do anything, and you can really write anywhere you need to be.
Yeah. Well, I love your attitude though. Like wherever you are, it is true that if you have the opportunity to write a book, no matter even if you're writing it after work, like, if you have found the time to carve out that time to write, it's awesome. Like wherever you're doing it from and just having that, I think it's the mental block more than anything, to get over is like seeing it as an opportunity and a blessing just to be able to get it out, right? I mean,
Yeah,
write it
I
down on paper.
That's what I did. I know CFO by day and came home and wrote at night. And yeah, it was hard. Luckily, uh, I have a lot of neuroplasticity between both my right and left hemispheres of my brain. So I can make that switch from very analytical type of work, but then going into the creative. The interesting thing that I had to learn was I'm my whole life as an athlete, coach, entrepreneur, I've been very results driven, and
Okay.
writing is process driven,
That's true.
and that is
Okay.
not my best thing. So learning not just to create my spreadsheet with my pages per day and all my analytics and metrics, and just say just sit and write and enjoy the process. That's very
Mm,
hard for me
okay.
because
I
so I've had to learn to reframe my brain and retrain it in like it's okay that I only got 1,500 words done today. That's okay. Did I have a good experience? Did I feel that what I wrote was quality work? Do I feel that I'm continuing the arc of the characters and that, and feeling good about what I did? And also,
yeah.
like, I mean, working 12, 14-hour days was routine, 6, 7 days a week. When you're an entrepreneur, that's the way it was with a startup. But I find that after 5 hours of good, solid creative work, I was done. And the
Yeah.
diminishing returns after that point, where it was just, every once in a while I got in a real zone and I would put 7, 8, 9 hours in, but it was pure joy, right? It was good. But I knew like after that 5 hours, I could start seeing it and like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. That's
And then
true. And accepting that is really a battle as well. I know I'm really results driven too. Like I need some way to measure what I'm doing and I can get almost addicted, so I have to like put away the Google spreadsheet because in the end, like you said, if you put 5,000 words down that you're going to delete 4,000 of them because you just push too hard. What's the
right.
point? Like
Yeah,
you have to.
you hit it on the head, the pushing part. Like I can muscle a spreadsheet, right? I could just bang on it for however long, but you can't muscle a manuscript.
Right.
It has to just come, it has to flow, and you have to be willing to not just put the words down because you have this metric. The one thing I did have to do to feed, because I did have this, constant
Mhm.
CFO in my brain going, hey, when are we going to do? When are you done? What are the results? When are you going to make some money on this and this and that? And just to tell him to be quiet,
Right.
I kept a timesheet.
Okay.
So I log my time every day. And so it took me, when people say, how long did it take you to write? I can tell you exactly
Okay.
714 and a half hours.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay,
So I
that's a whole
kept
new
it,
way
and
to do
that's
it.
from December 2021, no, 2020 to um, like almost October, November 2021. So I started it in late, 21 20, and then finished it in 21, and then
Okay.
published it in March of 22. So, but it was good because I wanted to know, like,
Right.
okay, how long does it take, and what can I base the next one on, and be realistic. Also, versions. I mean, God, the published version was version 8.4.
Oh, that's
That's
funny
how
that
many
you would know
rewrites. Yeah, so I'm really big on version control. That just comes from tech stuff, but uh, and I'm really and it was really good. And I had two editors,
that.
uh,
Yep.
designers, and my editors were great, and I learned a lot from them. Uh,
Okay.
but even then, I think the next time when I do this one, not only will I have my developmental editor and my line editor, I'm getting a proofreader too,
Right.
because we all miss stuff. And I think we got
Yes.
book fatigue. We definitely got book fatigue.
Yes. Yes.
It's
We know the story
304.
too well, right?
Yeah. And that proofreader, you really need to find someone who's just, as one author told me, a friend of mine, he said, your proofreader should be annoying. If your proofreader isn't just completely annoying and questioning you on every little thing, they're not doing their job. So
Oh,
if you're
that's a funny way to put it.
Yeah, they should be absolutely almost like on the spectrum type of just beyond anal, and that's a good thing because they're gonna
Right.
catch stuff that you're gonna be like, oh crap. So
Well, it's interesting because you're an entrepreneur that takes a certain personality, but you seem very humble in like because a lot of writers don't do well with editors, multiple editors. We just feel like, oh, you're changing my baby. It feels very personal to people. So having a very anal proofreader, I can imagine quite a few writers would just be very upset about that and almost take it personally.
well, I guess that's part of the advantage because to me, best idea wins, and I don't
Okay.
care where it comes from. I want Headcase to be in my series. I want it to be the best product, and I don't have a problem calling my art a product.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be the best product that it can, because I'm writing this to not only entertain, and it covers, so about the book real quick. So
Yeah.
Headcase is about Dr. Andrew Beck, who's the go-to sports psychologist for troubled athletes. And there's not a head he can't fix except his own.
Of
And
course.
when his
He's a
own, yeah, of course,
psychologist.
right? So when his own childhood traumas and
Okay.
gambling addiction gets the best of him, he makes a bet using his insider knowledge on his athletes, and it leads him down this dark path of blackmail, mysterious murder, and life or death bluffing. And while it's a thriller, it also talks, another part of it is about mental health in sports as a
Okay.
competitive athlete, spending time around athletes and Olympians and learning just some of the issues that they go on their off field, and just how many of them had traumatic and horrific childhoods growing up, and
Mm,
being able to really talk about that. You are seeing in many places where, like in shows where there is a psychologist, like in Ted Lasso, but you never see it in session where
okay.
you're in session with Andrew and his clients, and
Right.
where he's very compartmentalized. He's great with his clients, but then he can't even see his own addictions and his own traumas. and what they've done to him.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
yeah, so it's so the mental health part is part of it as well. So I want this to be something that people, one, they just enjoy. They pick up 20
Hmm.
minutes before they go to bed and they had a little bit of joy. They get a break from their difficult life. And if I can do that, if I can entertain them, then I've succeeded. Whether I sell one book or a million, it's really the people who've, the emails I get back and saying how much they enjoyed it. And they're actually pretty surprised because I think, they don't, no one had very high expectations of me, including my mom. So I have a
Oh,
quote on my website. So I bring my mom down to Barbados and she's reading like a draft and she's going through it. And every time she finds like a little typo, she gets all excited. And then she's about three-quarters of the way through and she turns to me and goes, Chris, I didn't think it was going to be this good.
oh, that's very nice of her.
Like,
Thanks, Mom.
you want to restate that? So yeah, a lot of my friends and people I knew and colleagues, they bought the book just to help me out, but then they wrote back like, oh, wow, this was really good.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
so yeah, it's nice to know, like, because people never saw that side of me. So
Right.
writing, it's not something I always want. I mean, I always say that it was the best form of therapy I ever had, and being
Okay.
able to be present with what I was feeling and how my characters can make me feel. And I've been in like a cafe writing and like get choked up. Like, oh, is anyone seeing me because of what my characters are going through?
Right.
And yeah, and sometimes people have said, like, are these real people? I'm like, no, I've made them all up.
Right. But you drew from your experience of just 20 years in the business of sports and coaching and all that.
Yeah. So yeah, I worked as a young man in professional sports teams, but it was a lot of my own competition and just I competed in judo. I was a wrestler in college and then
Okay.
competed in judo and then also coached soccer and just things I saw, things I spoke to, research with other athletes, spoke to Olympians and other athletes and just a lot of research. Michael Phelps' weight of gold was really, you should watch that. That just tells, how tough it is for even gold medal winners. And
That's
so I
interesting.
asked that to a lot of people. I'm like, who do you think are the most happiest, the gold, silver, or bronze winners? So who would you think are the
Right.
most happiest? A gold
Well,
medal
now I
winner.
feel like it's a trick question.
So go with that.
I guess we would always say gold, but now I feel like you're going to say silver.
No, the bronze
The
medalist. The
bronze
bronze
medalist.
medalist, because a lot of times they weren't even expected to win. So they're happy they got a
Oh,
medal.
they got up on
Or
the podium.
if they were expected to win and they just had a bad showing, they're motivated to go back and go.
Interesting.
Next is a silver medalist because they made it, and even though they just missed that, it's the same thing whether they expect it or not. If they're expected, okay, just came up short, I'm going to work harder. But the gold medalist, after all this fanfare, they go home and people have moved on, and there's like this emptiness about 30 to 60 days after the games, where some of them really, I mean, even someone in my own sport, he committed suicide, and it's not
Oh,
unusual
no.
for a lot of athletes to commit suicide because of just the depression and just the letdown and like, what do I do now? What happens? I've hit the pinnacle. I'm 20 something years old. Yeah, it's really quite interesting. All the research that came through and about athletes and yeah, they go through a lot and they don't get, they're starting to get sympathy, which is great, but they don't get a lot because wow, they're rich, famous, they're playing a
Yeah.
game, uh, they have everything they want. Why should I feel sorry for them? But if everybody deserves compassion, everybody
Right.
deserves understanding, and it doesn't matter where you came from, but what most of athletes had to come through in order to just be a professional. I mean, you're talking about,
Yeah.
such a
Like
small
giving up
percentage,
their childhood really to become a
right?
profession, right?
And then even after. So I even cover
Right.
that in the book about what happens when it's all over and you're in your 20s, maybe 30 years old, and your career is over. Now
That's so
what?
crazy, isn't
This
it?
is all you've done since the time you're 6 years old. You don't know anything else.
Right.
And how dealing with that, and I dealt with that in the book as well.
Oh, that's really, I mean, it spans a lot of information then. So like you had to do all this research, but at the same time, that's a little depressing. Like how did you deal with that just yourself as a writer? like if it was just a tough day of research.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was my job as the storyteller to really tell what's going on. And yes, there's things like if I read them aloud or this or that, I get choked up every single time. And it's interesting. It's like I wrote it, right? Just like saying things I laugh at every time. I'm like, is that egotistical of me? Or like I laugh at my own joke, right? I don't know, but it's funny, you know? And the same thing, there's things that just get me every single time that will bring a tear to my eye and choke me up. And um, it's just, it's just hopefully the reader is getting that impact too.
Right,
Uh,
right.
when they talk about the things that happen in their families and how their childhood was, and so much really does go back to that
Yeah.
and the generational trauma. So yeah, I get no. It's kind of hard to be depressed when I look up and I just see the
You see
ocean,
it in the
85
ocean.
and sunny every single day. But
That's true.
Kat, I will tell you this, there were times when, like, after days of, like, doing this, I would get up, I'm like, "I need to see a real human being."
Yeah,
I've had
this
these
is true.
20 people in my head, like, I need to see what a real human and, like, go out and, like, talk to people because you do get caught up. And the same thing, like, while I was going through all the bookmarking stuff and readings and doing things, like, there was a time in, like, in the fall, I was like, I miss my characters. I haven't hung out with them in a long time. Like I actually remember like feeling like, oh, I miss them, you know? So that
Yes,
was a weird
yes. That's,
experience.
writers are weird when it comes down to that point of like, I haven't been alone all day, but I have been alone all day, and I need, I need. It's like, oh, yeah, we get a bit weird, don't we? So
Yeah.
I do want to ask you because you're, a CFO by day. Like I'm married to a CFO, so that's a lot of work. Like there, you guys are always working. I mean, now you get to write for a living, but how did you find the time to learn how to write a psychological thriller? Like I feel like that's a big step right there. That's not just like, oh, I'm going to write a short story or I'm just going to write a memoir or something. I feel like
Mhm.
psychological thriller that takes some plotting and some planning, and things have to come together, right? And research and all that. So, did you wait until after you quit to really learn the
No,
structure of that, or did you do it before?
no, it was like 2016. I really started to take my writing seriously. I
Okay.
started doing playwriting. I got accepted to our local theater and I wrote a play about called Twisted Metal about two Marines and their PTSD. I tend to write about mental health more than
Okay.
anything. And then I came up with this idea for Headcase, and it started out as a TV pilot, and I hired a screenwriter to teach me the business because I was way too busy running my
Right.
company and teach me how to write that. And then I wrote it. Of course, you submit it to contests, it got destroyed. They just ripped it to shreds, and you do it all over
They just
again.
love that, don't they?
Yeah, that's all right. And then, we went into the right, and I worked on that for a while as a screenplay. It started to do well. I won contests and in England and Toronto and LA. So I won a bunch of New York, a bunch of contests. I thought, okay, great. And then the writer's strike happened, and then we went into pandemic. And I asked the person in the business, I'm like, what should I do? Like, should I turn it into a novel? She's like, yeah, do that. I'm like, okay, great. And so I
Okay.
had to learn now after spending years of writing dialogue. I'm very comfortable with writing dialogue. I love dialogue. It's a lot of fun. I had to learn to write narrative. And that's
Right.
probably why I went to screenplays over, doing a novel in the beginning, because I just really enjoy the dialogue.
Yeah.
But what I found was surprising was the narrative. I was dreading the narrative. I was absolutely dreading it, but it gave me a lot of freedom because now
Mm,
because in screenplays, you're not supposed to, the writer is not supposed to direct from the page.
right.
I'm not
Right.
supposed to say what the actor should do, they should think, look. But now I'm the cinematographer, I'm the director, and I can tell how Andrew is feeling, and I take him through. Um, so you really are with him all along. You know what he's thinking, what he's feeling in his body, what he hears, what he tastes, sounds like. I really made it very experiential. So the person really goes on. And then the narrative was freeing for
Interesting.
me because I was able to now really get into his head. I told it from a single point of view. It's only
Okay.
from Andrew's point of view, and that was a choice. I thought, were also recommended by one of my editors, like just do that. So you are really with him all the time. He makes bad decisions, uh, and yet it's interesting when he's this flawed hero that people still feel for him, and he's like, come on, you can, oh, what did you do? He's always like, oh no, because his
Come
ego
on,
gets
it's right there.
involved,
Yep.
his trauma gets involved, and he
Right.
just makes bad decisions, even though he's the smartest guy in the room, or thinks he is.
That's
So,
interesting. I mean, I talk to on the podcast all the time about this idea of learning the craft, so it really sounds like you were very open from the beginning to just learn. Because
yeah.
I think that's another ego trip sometimes that right or ego block that writers trip over is like if I have a story in my head, I should be able to get it from my head to the paper with minimal intervention from experts.
Oh
I just find
no.
that that is pretty prevalent. But just because we have a talent of storytelling doesn't mean that it can get from brain to paper easily, right?
Yeah. I am not concise. So having an editor that helped me become more concise.
Interesting.
But also that just comes from years and years of martial arts training. There's always someone bigger, better, faster,
Yeah,
stronger. You're always going to get your butt kicked, at some point or not. So you learn humility pretty fast, especially in judo, where it's a Japanese art, and you're just, yeah, going in with a big ego, you're going to get your butt kicked.
that's
So
interesting. Okay.
a lot of this, and as in just being in team, I think humility is really important. And again, if my goal is to produce the best possible work, if a 5-year-old's got a good idea, I'm going to use it. I don't care, right? If you
Yeah.
came up with like, oh wow. Now, that being said, right? So if a reader is taken out and they tell me about it, I want to hear what they have to say, no
Mm,
matter what. Even if I think it's the best bit of prose I've ever written in my entire life, if it took them out, I want to understand, why did it take you out? What happened? What was it about that would take you out? Was it the fact? Was it the feeling? Was it the wording? And I want to know that, so then I can go back. And if someone gets taken out, now if they say, Chris, you know what you should do with that character? You should do blah 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 blah. I'm like, that's your story. I'm gonna
yeah,
write my story.
exactly.
You can
There's
keep
a
that.
difference, right?
Right. There's a difference, but any reader who says they were taken out by that, by anything, they were taken out of the story, I need to consider it, because,
Right.
okay, and I may say, no, that's you, right? But more than likely, I bet there's a way I can make that more clear. I bet there's a way that I can make it more concise. I bet I can make it more powerful. So I see it as a challenge, right? As like, okay, that didn't work for you. Let me see. Can I can I
Interesting.
go sharpen that tool a little bit more? And that's just going to make me a better writer. So yeah, going through it with a good dose of humility. I didn't really think about it like that. I just want the best story. And
Mm,
I'm hiring an editor to help me make it the best
right.
story. So I mean, I spent the first part of my career my first company was advising people as a consultant, and kind of working with startups. And there was nothing more annoying when I could see stuff happening, and they're paying me to give them advice, and then they don't follow it. So the same
Right.
thing. Now it's the other way around. I'm paying people for their advice. I'm going to follow it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what they say, because they're the expert and I'm the newbie. Again,
Right. Right.
I'm
Right.
talented. I believe I can tell a story, but I'm still, maybe a yellow belt. I still have a long way to go. And that's the exciting part for me, because I know I'm going to improve. I know book 2 is going to be better than book 1.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and
I
I
just
think
love your attitude about it. I think I've heard that about martial arts because I think writing is, as you've said, a very solitary career, right? And so you don't have that team aspect. You can get very um, shut in into your office or your space or the beach, wherever you write. But your that outlook is very correct in just like seeing it as a challenge and seeing it, how can I get better? And I want to be better at this. And I mean, we also have to realize that editors are experts, and so they're going to tell you the best, right? So like just having that attitude. I love getting editing back now as an older writer. Putting quotes around that, everyone, and I think this is part of the journey also of just like hitting a certain part of life, right? Where you realize, yeah, it's okay if I don't have all the answers. You spent years gathering all these answers. So please now give them to me and mark up my page and let me see what it is. And just having the confidence to be able to, like, I will take what I need to and learn and keep going.
Mm.
So you said that this is going to be a series, or
Yep,
are you
it's a
writing
series.
standalones? Okay.
Yeah,
Is it going
yeah.
to follow the same doctor, or how is
Yep,
that going to
same
go?
guy. He's, I leave it kind of a little bit of a cliffhanger where
Ooh.
he's in trouble, and so now I'm working on book two now, and uh, you know, and that I was hoping to get it done last year, but definitely the book marketing side,
Marketing.
I struggled with. I
Book
definitely
marketing
struggled
is
with that
rough, isn't it? It takes time. And well, let me ask you this: why did you choose indie publishing over traditionally published?
because I was not what any of the publishing companies are going to look for.
Really? Why do you think that?
Yeah, I just don't think, the voice of a middle-aged white male they're not looking for in
Okay.
many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So,
And they're about
and
to collapse, I think. That's just
the
my
other
thought.
side too is from my research, like they don't
Okay.
do that much for you. And my friends who I spoke to, they didn't help with the marketing. And one of my friends, they actually launched three other books the same week that his was coming out.
Oh,
And
wow.
they released
The same
so
house?
yeah, yeah.
Oof,
And
that's
so he
rough.
wasn't pleased about that. You still have to do most of the marketing yourself.
Yeah.
I am fortunate that I have, the resources where it wasn't a big deal. And Amazon makes it really easy. They
Okay.
do make it super easy.
And you
Uh,
earn more money like, just to come down to the nitty gritty. I mean, you're going
yeah,
to do the work anyway. You also have, I mean, you must be pretty comfortable with the idea of this is a business because you're an entrepreneur. I mean, I think that all writers these days, even traditionally, but mostly us indie writers, are entrepreneurs. Like, that's that's what you're doing. You're creating a business, right? An entertainment business.
entertainment. Yeah. And marketing was never my strong suit. I'm, very
So you're
strong
learning writing
finance.
and marketing.
Yeah, and I'm really bad at it. I don't think that way.
Mm,
I'm a pretty smart guy and really good with analytical finance strategy and on the creative side. But when it comes to things on marketing, my brain just doesn't really think about those things. And when I do, I'd rather you just punch me in the face than have to do it. It would be less painful. I
I think most
despise
of us feel
everything
like
to do
that.
with it. Now I love giving book readings. I love being out in front of people. Like I said, I'm an extrovert. I can do Q&A all day. These types of things. I love doing this stuff. It's fun for me. But if you want me to be the one to go out and get the people to be in their seats, just break my finger. It'll be easy.
it'll be
I
it'll be more
hate
fun.
it. Yeah. So, now in the next book, I'm going to do it a little bit better and find people who can
Yeah,
help
just
me.
like
Like, I don't like social media. I don't think about posting stuff. It's just not something I'm not, although extroverted, I'm not a person who wants to broadcast my life.
right.
What I mean?
Yeah, that's
And I
rough.
just don't think about things and then things that are actually useful, where I've talked to other people and, you know, it's just not an area I like. So I'd rather not do it. So I just have to figure out a way. I did like investigate in some ads. I thought that was a waste of money. Um, yeah, I
Well,
still
and it's
think of
harder
it.
starting out. I
Yeah,
mean, as they say, with every book, it gets easier for people to find you, and that's it's horrible to hear. But when I was writing way back when I was a student, and my first manuscript got rejected, and Orson Scott Card was sitting in my boyfriend at the time restaurant, and he was serving him. He didn't know who he was because my husband doesn't read. He reads nonfiction. So Orson Scott Card is there, and he was telling him, her manuscript got rejected. What should she do? And he said, write another book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he
I
said that.
agree.
But it's true. It's true, isn't
Yeah.
it? You just write
Um,
another one.
I think I also had unrealistic expectations just because. So in that case, where my startup mentality came, everything goes pretty fast. You're really moving at the
Oh,
speed of
okay.
light. And this is a glacial business.
Yeah.
I have worked in 37 different industries, and this is the hardest to break in for the least amount of return on investment.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Oh
there?
yeah, from my
Wow.
experience,
Okay.
and the amount of money I pay to write. So I don't think I get paid. I pay to write. But
Yeah.
I do think, it's still, so for me, I'm trying not to think of it as a business, because then I'll and when I started, launching the book, I did, and the CFO creeped back in and kind of took over and really killed the creative voice. So I
Mm.
think the other thing is just producing a bunch of books. I saw an article in the Times about this romance writer. I forget her name, but she had the top 7 books in romance.
Colleen Hoover. Yeah.
I think so. And then I looked at, like, I said, all right, I'm going to look up each one of those books. I'm like, oh, 2006, 2008,
Right.
2012. So like I'm looking at mine, I'm like, I'm 6 months into this. Like, and
Yeah, you're
I
a
had
baby.
very unrealistic expectations that this takes time.
Yeah.
It takes years. And so I said, you know what? I'm just gonna focus on getting the second one. Let me get my process down. Let me get my writing
Mm.
process down. Let me get better as a writer. Let me really improve in my craft. And I'll worry about sales and things like that later. Or just I believe that I'll come across the right people in the right place, and who knows, it could be 2 years from now, and then all of a sudden gets
Right.
picked up as a show, or you know an athlete reads it and goes, oh my god, you got to read this, and he's got a gazillion followers, and then all of a sudden you
You
just
never
don't
know.
know. It's such
I think Colleen Hoover got it because people were TikToking it, and she wasn't. It was another reader.
yeah.
So I think you're right. And I think this goes into mental health as well as for writers, is just
Mm,
really reminding ourselves, right? This is an art. Art is glacial, and it's just like inch by inch, and at the same time just keep writing because that feeds us, right? We want to write, we have the stories in our head, we want
yeah.
to get it out, and just knowing little by little. I mean, I think it's great that Colleen Hoover got to that point, but it is like not everyone is um Harry Potter lady
uh,
Rowling,
yeah, okay,
where
Roland.
they knew where this was going and what they could get from it. I mean that's after like 50 rejections or something that
Yeah,
she
yeah.
had, right? So just knowing that and reminding ourselves of that is always good.
I,
And
I, don't- I
remembering.
think it's so hard to tell when it's going to get picked up and what not. And, when something hits the zeitgeist, as, mental health in sports is starting to get, where
Right.
people, as athletes are coming out and talking about it. Uh, it's really great, but who knows? So this year, after feeling even, and my best friend is great. And I wouldn't know what to do without him, because I'm so results, I'm like, oh man, I really failed last year. He's like, you wrote, you put out your book, you put out the audio, you won several awards. How is that a fit? Because I'm looking at numbers, right? And feeling
Right.
like,
Right.
I got my first royalty check and it was less than 1 hour of my consulting time. I'm like, oh my God. But then I
It's
said,
different.
like, luckily enough, I don't need this to live on. I have
Right.
other things to to do, or I can focus on it. And I know that's not for every writer. But I also think if you go into writing for the money, unless you're a nonfiction. If you're a nonfiction author and you've done well in business and you have like a methodology and you're putting that in, and that's going to lead to speaking engagements, and that's your business, and your book is your calling card, great. That's awesome.
Right.
And that's
That's
usually
different.
like where the top 10% of writers, there's less than 10% who make over 150,000, and most of that's from speaking, not from their writing.
Yes,
It's different.
exactly.
Right. But that's okay. That's
Right.
okay. This is your calling card. Love it. I love nonfiction too. Um, if you're a fiction writer, if you're going in it like for the money, I think that's a tough thing to do. I think it's kind of like being a day trader and expecting to pay your mortgage with your day trading. I think that's a very dangerous point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also writing to market. You hear, oh, this is like one, you don't know. You
Right.
don't know. And
It's
I
fickle.
honestly don't think that anyone really knows what's going to be a success, what's not. I mean, for every silent patient there is, and I loved his book. I loved it. Alex Michael that just his first book hit. But that was, so many years as a failed screenwriter. And then his first book, boom.
Right. You always have to
Yeah.
look behind, right? Like,
But that's, the exception, not the rule. Uh, so one of the things I did for a series is I went and read David Baldacci's first book, John
okay.
Grisham's first book, and Lee Child's first book. And I wanted to compare where I was compared to where these wonderful authors that I love and adore. And I wanted to see, all right, am I their first book, right? It's like, all
Right.
right, that's the same thing. Like, all right, I think I'm
That's interesting that you point that out, though. Their first book, not their
first book.
latest.
No. I went back to
Right.
their first one
Right.
and to see like, okay, where am I compared to them? Like, okay, I think I'm holding my own. I think I told a good story. Um, not kind of compare it to what their sales did or this or that, but just like this story. Where were they in their journey? Where am I in my journey?
Right.
And I'm just a beginner. And I think keeping that beginner's mind is important because you stay excited
Yeah.
and you stay motivated and you want to just tell your story. And hopefully for me, how I want to measure success is that some person someday comes up to me and goes, Chris, because of your book, I changed what I was doing. I got help.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I stopped whatever I was doing, whether it was drugs or alcohol or gambling. And I got sober and straight. Um, if someone said that to me, I think, oh my God, then I succeeded because I influenced some person's life
Right.
and I
So
made them
you
make a change.
you went into this really thinking, and I think that's great to have more than just the story, but mental health is really important to you, right? And you said even for yourself, like writing was a therapy for you, and I've heard
Yeah.
several authors say that their first book was just like the best therapy that they could go through. So you went into this with that really focus of mental health. Was it mostly for men, like focusing on like mental health for men, or just mental health in
No, I mean, every character in there's got their issues. So every character's
just
got
like
it.
in life?
Obviously, I'm coming from a male perspective,
Hmm.
right? And I'm still working on my female voice. Oh, one of my readers, she said it was a very interesting look into the male psyche
Oh, that's cool.
because it's like how men think. I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
didn't write it like that. I'm a male. I was
I'm a
able to,
male and I think like this.
this is how how my character
Well,
thinks,
but you've been around a lot of sports is
Yeah.
dominated a lot by men, right? So I mean that's cool because a lot of books are more female psyche. I'm gonna
Yeah,
write
so
this.
that was interesting. It
That's
wasn't
cool.
my intent, right? But I think it's very important to work on. But I have very strong female characters. I grew up around very strong women. My mom, my grandparents, I grew up with very strong women in my life, and I like strong women characters.
Mm.
And I think the women in Head Case are also very strong. It's very interesting when some of the guys have come back and one of their favorite characters was, this very strong feisty redheaded Scottish woman, Laurie, and she didn't play around, and
Yeah.
yet she had a good heart, and you know was really trying to protect Andrew from himself, in this gambling den, the Five Iron, where they were from her boss, Fergus, and who was really, getting him into a really deep, dark place where he could control him.
Right.
And so it's interesting one of the feedback that I got, and people really like that character. And yeah, she's a badass. And I like writing strong female character. I'm learning my female voice. I'm not an expert at it. I write males very good, and I write kids' voices very good. And
Oh, that's awesome. Hey,
that's what I'm good
we
at.
can't do everything perfectly.
No,
But is mental health going to be a theme going forward throughout the whole series, do you think?
yeah, definitely with this and everything else, even other books I have that are, I have my list of things to do to get through. And I think mental health is always going to be a part of it because I think it's something that we all have. We all have our traumas and we all have our experiences. I mean, I had mine and helping work through it. I mean, I had eating disorders and, from trying to lose weight for wrestling and I was bulimic for many years just so I
Oh,
could
wow.
eat and then make weight. And that did a
Right.
lot of damage to my head, my body issues, you know, I didn't prepare well to go on because I just wanted to beat the scale.
Yeah.
I was fighting the scale and not, but that's why judo was so great for me. It was actually my Buddhist teacher was the one who told me to take judo and it changed everything for me because I went out in a very healthy way with a healthy mindset. I didn't cut weight. I played my natural weight. I had fun with it, and I really was focused on the opponent and I did really well. I
Mm,
won a lot and I won tournaments and it did quite well. So yeah, mental health is always going to be a part of anything I write because I just think it's so important that it's something I work on every day on
right.
myself,
No, I
and
think that's
just
great.
how to have a good approach to life um and make a difference. At
Yeah.
this point, I just want to be able to make a difference, and hopefully I can do that with my writing.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's really, really wonderful. Well, as we close out, how can people find you and your next, if you do any readings or anything, and where can they find the book?
Yep. So you can go to my website. It's chriskjones.com. And you can actually, for your readers, if you sign up for the newsletter, you can get the first 7 chapters free.
Awesome.
So happy to do that. If any of your listeners have any direct questions, they can email me at headcase@chriskjones.com, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. My social media is headcase_novel on Twitter, Instagram. LinkedIn is Christopher K. Jones, and Facebook is Chris K. Jones, author.
Awesome. We'll have all those links in the show notes for you guys. 7 chapters free is very generous, so I think everyone should go over there and check out this new
I think if you
friendly
don't
book.
like it after 7 chapters, then don't buy the book.
No, that's true. I mean, I like that attitude too. Like, we don't really want to gather readers who aren't going to really read the book, right? So we need
Yeah.
to, like, if you
I
like
want to ask your
psychological thrillers.
opinion. I
Yeah,
want to ask your opinion on something. I've been thinking about this with this whole, I know this is off track with this P, chat PT thing or IPT, whatever it is, like, and people now writing books through AI. Like I
yeah.
thought about writing in my next book, like none of this book was done with using chat or using
GPT.
PT. Yeah, none of this book was inquired using, artificial intelligence
We
other
might
than,
have to start doing that. Who
right.
knows?
So people know, like, I didn't, this all came from my brain. And I don't think an AI engine, which I actually have a company that uses AI, can write the characters that I can write.
No, I
There's
don't
no
think so
way.
either.
So
I don't
don't
think
feel
so. So,
threatened. Don't feel threatened by it.
no, exactly. I mean,
It
everyone is seeing, unfortunately, what it's doing is it's causing, especially in the short story world, it's causing a traffic jam. So people have started to like push, send them in. And so all the literary magazines and that sort of world, they're getting inundated with just this junk. Um, and so now there's this contest that I love doing, NYC Midnight, and they now have a whole terms and conditions there. If they if it even smells slightly of Chat GPT or AI, they'll just toss it. And I think that's good, and I think it'll get. But of course, there's trolls everywhere now, so they're just gonna make this sort of traffic jam. And um, but
Well, now they got to
like
come up
like we
with.
talked about, you got to sell that book, man. You like go ahead and get a Chat GPT to spit it out. Good luck selling it. Like
Yeah.
that's the rest.
Well, I think the next thing will come is just someone's going to come up with just an AI detector.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
That's
you're right.
right. So you have
Smart
the
people out there.
offense right now. You're going to come up with defense, right? So
Yeah,
same thing. If this one person has this one move that you can't beat, no matter what, someone will come up with a defense to it.
right.
So the next thing that's going to come out is an AI detector. Oh yeah, we did, because I'm sure the universities, they'll sell it to all the universities because all the teachers are concerned about kids doing plagiarism. And to me, that's an ethics issue. And I
Yes,
think that's a failure in ethics, that you feel like because of all these cheat codes and games and you hear about these hacks, rather than, this is hard and
yeah,
it's good to do very hard things in life.
true.
It takes sacrifice. I made a lot of sacrifices in my life
It builds
to,
character, right?
yeah, and I don't think you get anywhere without hard work, sacrifice,
Right.
and skill. And
Yeah. I
that's,
don't think you're gonna feel good about yourself either.
yeah,
Like if you take the easy way out, great. You wrote a book, like good, Chat GPT wrote a book for you. Okay, what does that even mean? Like you didn't write a book, you slapped your name on something that a robot created. And technically, the robot didn't create it, they took it from the millions of places that it sees on the web. So they took the words of other people to put into your book. So you're right. It is just an ethics problem. And I don't worry about it because,
I do.
people, if they want the pill, the magic pill, I can't do anything about that. I would rather struggle with my characters and write the best book, right?
Right,
Like you said, we miss our characters. We got to go write with them. I don't know.
write yourself into a corner, and then you're like,
Yes, go into despair, you know? And then eventionally have your mom say, "This is good." I mean, that is like the best thing ever, right? So, so yeah,
yeah. So
good way to end. Like, don't worry about it, guys. Just keep
just
going.
get through it. Just put in the time, put in the sweat, put in. You'll, like you said, Kat, that you'll have something that you're proud of,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I'm very proud of it. It's on all different. The audiobook, actually, the audiobook is amazing. The actor who did it, I had 60 different speaking parts, so I had to count them all, and he did all of them. And so I got New York accents, New England accents, two Scottish characters,
Wow.
all different people from different places. He was amazing. PJ Oakland, award-winning audio, and it was, for me, I totally recommend it if you can swing it. Like hearing your work read by someone else, it's really wonderful. He kind of brought and he's a professional trained actor,
Right.
so he brought my characters alive, and the audiobook is absolutely fantastic.
That's cool. That's cool. That's my next step. I'll be doing a Kickstarter to get some audio in there. But I mean, there's that other question too of using AI for audio. And I understand both sides of the argument. It sort of brings down the cost, but then I feel bad for the actors. So I haven't quite decided on that one.
I
But
think what I would do for that is when I feel like my book was done, I might use that AI audio for myself and my editor. And like,
mm,
all right, how does it sound? But then eventually give it to a real actor, because there's
right.
just going to be an energy. Honestly, like, not to get too woo-ish, but there's an energy that they bring to it that a machine does not and cannot, is not
Yeah.
capable. And that energy is going to resound and connect. Think about the books that you've listened to, like Artemis from Andy Weir, that Rosario Dawson did. I can listen to that all day long because she's amazing,
Yeah.
right? And you find those actors that you've listened to, or and they bring something to it.
It's
Same
true.
thing with,
You can't beat it, honestly.
yeah,
A good actor on audio, like um there's nothing better.
but
Especially when they can do the accents. Oof.
yeah, and mine
I
were
could
tough,
listen all
and
day
he
long.
did it. And I
That's
think,
very cool.
you using it for yourself, like I'll use on Word the read feature because I want to hear it too. And I think that's a good thing. I think using it for yourself as a training tool, but as far as the publishing, I get it. I understand, because money's money,
Hmm.
and this stuff isn't cheap. It's expensive. Uh, but I think if you think of your book, your art, that it has to be the best possible and bring out, like, you want it to touch somebody and affect them or just entertain them, right?
Mm.
And I think that's what happens when you confuse the money part with, oh, I got to get it out there, I got to make it money and this and that, with just, this is the creation of something from your brain and your mind and sharing it. And that's easy for me to say, and I understand that because I don't have to rely on my book writing. um, but it is something I think that's important. And it's hard for me to remember that too, because I
Well,
have
I
a
think
CFO
it's
brain.
it's good to be realistic as a writer too, though, that most people, if they're on their own income, if they're the primary income holder, the chances of quitting that job to become a full-time writer are pretty low. In fact, we interview people because of that, so like those people who have made it that far, again, have been in the industry for a while. And then kudos to them. They work hard at it. It is a full-time job and they've figured out a way to do it, but there aren't very many. And so just to be very realistic about why are you writing? What do you want from it? Have your dreams, but also be realistic. And
Mhm.
you know, lots of people do other things. I mean, the majority of the indie authors that I know who work full time, me included, I make my money teaching over selling books. Now, is it still my dream to get to the point where I sell those books? Absolutely. But I need a couple more. I have 3 out,
That's
3
great.
more coming, but I have learned, I mean, I think especially when you are starting out, of course you have those dreams, like one book and it will hit. At the same time, even if it does hit, will eventually fall off. It's an art form. People move on. They've read the book. They told their friends they read the book. Now they're on to other things. There are people out there that read like 300 books a year, So it will fall off. You will have to write another book unless it's the nonfiction calling card. Um, so why are you writing? And so I always tell people that I coach, like, is this something that fulfills you just because you're writing and you're learning and you just love it? Then it's worth doing, even if it can sometimes, make you want to punch a wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I was doing my taxes and I was like, look, I earned $15 last month, like, um, and it's just one of the my husband was asking me like what happened this month versus that month. I said I wasn't doing promotions. I was doing something else. So, it is one of those things. I know Kirsten Oliphant, she spends 5,000 a month, or at least did, to make 5,000. So she would sell, so that it's a business. And once you get to that point, you have 20, 25 books. It's a business. You have to constantly be selling it. You have to be
Yep.
spending the money, and it's just
Well,
constantly changing that mindset.
if you
So,
think about the business model and why it's so difficult and why I said this one is with many businesses, you have a subscription model. So, right, your book
okay,
costs $20, well, they're paying $20 a month for something. This person, you had this time and effort to acquire the customer. They buy one book, right?
right,
It's only
you're done.
one book at a time. And now you got to do the whole thing again, right? It's not like they're buying a book every month from
Good
you,
point. Yep.
or it's not a repeatable where you get that customer and you have them forever. And the only bad thing about Amazon is you never know who your customers are. So you
Yeah.
can't have that type of relationship. And like, again, where I struggle with, I'm like, build your mailing list. How? Every time I press, like, how do you do that? Yes, I went through the people that I know, and yes, they joined and this and that, but okay, how do I get people who don't know me? Like, so these are really, really hard things to do. And again, it's a model where you sell one book, you make $4 or $5 at most.
And you gotta go find the next.
Uh, you can't
Yeah.
even buy one at Starbucks with that. Yeah, right. So it's like it's very, very interesting. And then you spent all this effort, time, you did a reading, you did that, and like you may never see them again. They might not write a review. There's like
Well, and you'll do a promotion where, you'll put it on sale, and then you'll start getting emails of, well, the sale's over, but can you sell it to me for that sale price, or can you give it to me for free? Lots of people get books for free now. And so there are times that it's frustrating where you just want to say, I put a lot of time into this book. You and if people and I tell people all the time, if you buy a print book, the author's getting maybe $3 from it. Maybe. With paper prices going up and shipping fees going up, it's gone down a lot. And so I had to up my book because one of my books is pretty long. It had to, Amazon told me it has to be up to $17. Otherwise, you will owe us every time somebody buys this
that
book.
happened with me on
Like,
Ingram Spark and Lulu. So on Ingram
yeah.
Spark, I was like negative. I
Yes.
had to increase the
Yes,
price.
you have to pay them. So, it's just these little things behind the scenes that people don't understand. And I get it. It feels like a lot to spend $18 per book, but you can get it on ebook. But it just goes into a lot, and it's a rough industry.
It's
You
a
gotta
very
love
tough.
it.
Like I said, 37 industries. This is the toughest to break into and make a good return of all the industries I've been in. It, but when we look at the reward, it's pretty rewarding.
Yeah,
You know,
it is.
it's and I get to live in my imagination, which is a lot of fun. these characters are a
You
lot
get
of
to
fun for me.
explore some really dark things without having to be dark. You don't have to.
Yeah, that's another thing when people ask, like, "Oh, are you like your character?" And I'm like, "No, we're nothing alike."
I don't want to gamble away my life. What are you talking
I
about?
no, actually, but real quick story. So my friends were playing cards. We're like 9 or 10 years old, and so we go out and play cards. And I showed up late, and we get done playing, and I was just having fun. They're like, "Okay, Chris, will you owe like $3?" And so I'm like, "What? We were playing for real money? You didn't tell me." I was so mad, and I remember leaving, like having to go get my money. I'm never gonna gamble ever again. This is the stupidest thing ever. And I write a book for that.
And then your book. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. We get to walk in the shoes of someone we're curious about, but we don't really want to be. We don't want to risk that,
Oh,
but we want to see what it would be like if somebody would risk it. I mean,
I
I think it's great.
Andrew's favorite drink is scotch. And after I finished the book, someone said, "Don't you think you should?" And I said, "You drink it?" I'm like, "No, I've never had it in my life." Like, "Well, why don't you go try it?" I'm like, "Okay." And now I like it. But like, there's so many things that, like, I had to learn how to play poker because I didn't know, like, Texas Hold'em. I learned for the book. So luckily, my editor was a poker player. So he
Nice.
helped me with some of the terminology. And honestly, I never play video games, but I downloaded a game on my phone and it really helped me understand positioning, when to fold, when not, bluffing. Like, it really helped me understand the game by playing the video game. So I like I played that. I watched, like, on Masterclass, and Daniel Negreanu, who's a professional one, and like how he reads people. And that's what Andrew
Yeah.
gets off on. He doesn't care so much about the money. He's a psychologist and he wants to use all of his psychology to read someone and master their mind and own them. And that's where he gets his
That's
thrill from, that he can predict to the point when they're going to fold and what cards they have, and
that's funny.
yeah, and that's what he gets off on, and that's why he gets that thrill. So yeah, I can go to these dark places, these people that I see and they've had horrific, but doesn't mean like I would ever do any of those.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say bye to the listeners now, and we're going to stop the interview. But just 1 second, Chris.